we're too lazy to load videos up. You know,
Yeah.
me and Scott just can't get around to it. So I just got done doing my annual vacuuming, which was incredibly fruitful for the vacuum cleaner.
Well, I'm glad your vacuum cleaner had a good meal today.
Oh, it really did, but the problem is the kitties hate it, and that's
Well, I'm glad your vacuum cleaner had a good meal today.
oh, it
Oh,
really
I've
did.
got
But
to
the
echo.
problem is shit. I know I'm trying to. Everything is lagging for me, so it's gonna take me a little while to fucking click anything. If I click a button, it takes about 30 seconds because of evil Chrome demons, I guess. Anyway,
Ooh.
yeah, my vacuum cleaner upsets my kitties, so I don't like to vacuum because I don't like to upset the kitties.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that makes
but
sense.
there's only
Uh,
two things that Snack is afraid of: the spray bottle and the
and the
vacuum cleaner.
vacuum. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I got a feeling that he's going to conquer them both. He's gonna fucking cat. All the other cats they run no matter what I do, but this guy he's right there, right in my face, just fucking.
Wow.
He's quite adventurous. He's gonna need more than 9 lives. He's gonna need like 50 because he just doesn't get out of the way. You know, he's got to see everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just did a stream and I missed it because I was vacuuming.
Oh, I knew that you were busy, and that I didn't even tell you about the stream. It was a spontaneous thing, and like, you know what, I want to talk about some stuff. So,
What'd you
in
talk
fact,
about?
after our stream, I might even start another one after I do a couple things around here.
Oh, cool. I can hand it off to you when I get tired of it.
Sounds
So,
good. I want to say hi to Creo Debunk real quick.
hey, Creo is here. Oh, Chris Moore is here, and Wooly Ignorant, and
Awesome.
Gurmania somewhere. I sent him a link. But
So
anyway,
I don't have the user side page loaded. I only have the restream up on my screen. So far, I only see Creo's comments.
yeah, you only see the ones that have come up since we went live. So
Yeah.
that's the way she works. So, what was your random stream about?
So the first thing, I called scheduling for the local major hospital neurology, and and I the person that answered the call was named Lori. They don't give last names, and that's just as well. But Lori, she sounded like she was maybe in her mid 30s. Nice sounding lady. And so I explained my situation and what I needed to be scheduled for. And after I gave her like a whole minute's worth of backstory, then she explained, she's like, well, I don't need to know any of that because neurology does their own scheduling.
Oh
So
my
still have
god!
to just, right. And I felt bad for explaining like all the backstory
Right.
because she didn't need it, but I didn't know she didn't need it. But she wasn't upset about that. Instead, she paused and she said, you know what? I don't know what you do for a living, but I really, really hope your career uses your voice. Yeah, because the
Oh,
world needs to
cool.
hear that voice. She's like, I don't know what you do, but you should think about it. And I explained that I do and that I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. In fact, uh, Doctor Jay Bundy, has been talking with his his mentor, one of the most famous evolutionary scientists in the world, and about having
Lenski?
me. Yes, yes,
Oh my god!
and he is seriously interested in having me do the official audio narration for the most famous evolution book in the world. And I've told him I'd do it for free, like just to get that on my portfolio, just to get
Wow.
that on my record. I will do it for free. And because I know the value of that, right? Because I mean, once you're there, man, you just like, yeah. So he's really interested in talking with me about it. So Jay told me to hit him up later today if I get a
Cool.
chance to.
So
So
you get
yeah,
to meet Lenski?
Well, I get to talk with him at the very least. I don't know it. I don't even know where. I guess Linsky's in Michigan, and I'm in Indiana. I'm
Yeah.
sure at some point I'll have to get together with him personally, fill out some papers or whatever. But he is interested in having me do the audiobook for it.
Well, tell him
So
you got to bring your attorney. That's me. So
sure, sure. Never hurts to meet a celebrity and tell him you're my guy,
yep,
my agent.
the attorney.
Sure, my attorney.
I've been watching Arrested Development, and like they use their attorneys for everything. Bob blah blah and
Sure.
and Fonzie. I forget the fuck his name is, but he's just like the biggest loser lawyer of all time. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Us losers are all amazing. I just want to say that right now. We're underappreciated demographic.
So what in the hell? Why is this? Why am I? What the fuck? Jesus. Okay. Restream had one of these things highlighted, and it was the one I just clicked on, but you were off the screen for a while. So anyway, I got that straightened out.
I wondered what was going on over there. You're all like, "What the hell? What the fuck?" It sounded like
Well,
me the last time I had sex and couldn't remember how to do it.
right, exactly. Well, when you move your cursor and it's real laggy, it really fucks with your state of well-being when you're working on a computer.
Yeah.
Because like you'll click on something and then you click on it again and it's like, oh, it didn't get my button click well. It's because you clicked on it twice, and then you click on it like 7 or 8 times and you forget whether it's odd or even or what the fuck you did. And this sucks. I have got to get rid of Chrome. Chrome's
Mm.
got no.
Yeah, I might try to migrate as well. Let me know what works for you, and if it works better, I'll try it.
Yeah, I'll try this Opera GX. It's supposed to use the Chrome engine, which is a
Mm.
pretty good engine, but it doesn't do any of the Chrome bullshit. So
Ah,
yeah,
yeah.
which is pretty cool. So you sent me an interesting video, a couple of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So every
First,
time I see something that I think would really be interesting to you, I send it over. Now, the 3 videos back, I don't think we can really use that video for anything, but it was hilarious. Like I laughed so hard.
which one was that?
The one where the guy calls 911.
Oh yes, yeah, that was pretty
Uh,
cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Did it remind you of me?
um, I don't know. I've never been high with you, but I knew you'd appreciate it, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was pretty
That
cool.
was right, right. I put it on my Facebook page and nobody responded, but that's because I think most of the people on my friends list have already unfollowed me. Like they're tired of hearing about it. They're like, "Yeah, James, we know you're an atheist. You hate religion. You love science. We get it. Shut the hell up." And so instead
Well,
of saying that, they just unfollow me.
yeah, you love science, but you hate the universe, right?
I love
So
science, but hate the universe. I love to study the
hate,
universe that I hate.
hate it, right? Sucks.
Right, right, right. It
You would have
sucks.
done it differently.
Oh, wouldn't we all though? Like, wouldn't we all have done it differently?
Oh yes, yeah. No, I wouldn't have. I would have done it exactly the way it is.
No, you wouldn't have.
Anyway,
No, you wouldn't have.
Demeter, 11th dimension is here. Yes, I will call you because I have been very lax in talking to you and getting shit done. Anyway, yeah, I would have done it exactly like it turned out. I would have done my life the same way, everything just perfect.
But you wouldn't have designed nature the same way if you were a god.
Yeah, I would have. If I were God, I would have done just like this. I mean, shit.
I
What,
can't really.
yeah, what the fuck? What's wrong with it?
Okay, well,
What are your complaints?
let's go over a few things, right?
Okay.
There
Yeah.
are any number of natural water sources that seem just as crystal clear and delicious as the others, and yet so many of them have arsenic or parasites or other microorganisms in them that are going to absolutely decimate, cause so much pain, so much suffering, and eventually death for any human or animal that happens to walk across it thinking, water, what could go wrong? It's water. So I would definitely make sure that none of that stuff could get into water unless you had a way to know it's in the water without needing modern science and microscopes and testing, right? Like the color of it or the smell of it. Like I'd make sure it was that bad water could never trick you into thinking it was good water. I mean, I think that's the first thing on my list, and then I'd move down the line and go with mushrooms and various other plants. There's a plant here in Indiana, a version of hemlock that if you even so much as graze it with your hand, you will end up with these like the equivalent of third-degree burns that could actually scar. I mean,
Wow.
it's that toxic. If you eat it, you're going to die horribly. And it looks exactly like another plant, almost exactly like another plant that is completely harmless. So I don't know if we want to count these as separate things or all the same kind of thing, right? Think about how many animals and how many people have needlessly suffered and needlessly died horrifically because either evolution or a sky wizard, depending on which one you believe, um, just didn't care, right? So if I had super god powers and could redesign nature the way I want it to, I wouldn't do it that way at all. I make sure that the only parasites in the world were ones that were symbiotic, so that they gave back as much as they took, and so that no creature was way worse off for having had the experience. I'd make sure that human psychology was such that there were fail safes in place to limit just how psychopathic they could become, how dangerous they could become. Um, just limit it. Why not? I would limit how much pain parts of the brain can process. So if I get wanting to make sure it hurts if you stick your hand in the fire, because if you don't make sure it hurts, people are just going to keep their hands in the fire. Like what could go wrong? Next thing you know, they pull it back and they've got like a burnt nub there that's horrifically scarred and they can't even use it anymore. We don't want that. So we do want some degree of sensation that lets people know take this seriously. Get your hand away from the fire, right? And if it just tingles, a child or an animal or something else isn't going to bother to withdraw from the fire. You have to make it serious. But I would make sure that these gratuitous levels of pain and suffering, especially prolonged, right, that exist in nature and serve no functional necessary purpose, that wasn't a thing. That the human mind and animal minds, or other kinds of animal minds, I should say, could only process so much, and they just can't process like nothing beyond that even registers. Um, and then these just like so these are just some of the examples of things that I would do very differently. And
So
also, go ahead.
if you designed World of Warcraft, you would have all teddy bears and flowers, and there wouldn't be any confrontation or like things to look for, or everything would be just roses all the way down.
No, 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 no. I think that humans need a degree, and Professor Paul Bloom has as much as said the same thing, that humans need a degree of risk and adversity and struggle and consequence and pain and anguish, and they need real risk. They need real some degree of consequence to their lives. Because without that, if everything is just sunshine and rainbows and nobody suffers at all, then our lives lose meaning, our relationships lose meaning.
Right.
And this is one of the things I've tried to explain to Rebecca before. That what she's trying to book people for is tickets on the barge of the damned, because you go to this allegedly perfect kingdom where nobody ever has any kind of risk or struggle or consequence. Triumph. There's no such thing as triumph, but there's nothing to triumph over, right? There, and your relationships will lose all meaning because you don't need anybody for anything, because there's nothing to bond over. There's nothing to have each other's backs about. There's nothing to struggle through and win over anymore, right? There's just nothing. It's just all Mr. Rogers' neighborhood 24/7. And I
Right.
got to tell you, God would have more people trying to off themselves in that kingdom than ever tried to off themselves down here. And said these people just don't recognize that we need some degree of hunger in order for us to really go back to appreciating food, some degree of thirst in order to go back to appreciating water, some degree of pain in order to appreciate when we don't have pain, some degree of struggle in order to appreciate the people that are there with us, to struggle through it with us, to be there for us, right? Because then it means something. We need these things. So with all that in mind, if I were creating a better world as a super being with God powers, I would allow those things to still exist, but they wouldn't exist to the extremes that they do because there is diminishing returns on how much pain does for you, on how much suffering does for you. Right? There's diminishing returns. At some point, you've crossed a line into this serves no one's interests at all to allow this degree of suffering and especially prolonged. Like you just, it's gratuitous. It doesn't have a purpose. There's no. So if I were creating a perfect world, I would make sure that some degree of pain, suffering, etc., risk it still existed. But I would just say, here's the cutoff point. It doesn't get worse than this, and then I would tweak it a little bit. Like I'd watch and see how things go, and kind of tweak it a little bit here and there to kind of like perfect the system over time. And if we need less of this but more of that, then we just do right, and then that's it. And I think that again, we don't need arsenic in the water. We don't need.
Would you
Um,
allow death?
I would allow death, but
Okay.
I'd make sure that the world humans and animals live in had a minimum of people choosing death. I would identify all the different causes of people saying, "That's it, I'm out, I'm done with this shit," and I would say, "Okay, like how many of those can I resolve without an equal or worse consequence to having resolved it? Like where's that balance, right?" And I tweak it to find the balance. And in the end, like if somebody just decides, you know what, no matter what you do for me, I'm bored with it, right? I'm done with it. I get it. I get why people want it. I don't want it. I want out. I would allow that. I would say, okay, you're
So,
allowed out.
like,
Like,
I'm paying like $49.95 a month to subscribe to Life, to be alive in the universe. And I would cancel my subscription if it was a soft fucking universe like you're talking about. I mean, I want some real thrills. Like I want it to be
sure.
serious,
Well,
serious.
here's the thing, and I would allow that too. I'd be like, you know what, if you want to take greater
Jay's here.
risks, hey, Jay, how are you? And I would allow it. You want greater risk, take greater risk, right? You want in
Well, I
and
mean,
then you're yeah.
the stakes has to be higher. You know, the stakes have to be really high. Like, okay, imagine this whole thing is basically God and his buddy, the devil, were sitting around and they had no universe, they had nothing to do, and they were like, hey, dude, let's create this little world with and populate with all kinds of fucking diversity, and we'll create these humans that can think, you know, that have this like ability to reason like us.
Hmm.
And you be the bad guy and I'll be the good guy, and we'll just scare the living fuck out of them for like 60 years.
Hmm.
And then when they die, we'll just tell them that we were just kidding. We were playing, right? That's what
Sure.
this is, James. That's what this is. That is the game that this is, right? When you die, you're going to like essentially be rocketed into a state of being, which is no being at all, which will tell you very clearly that none of this was serious. None of the pain you felt or the pleasure. I mean, we're inclined to think, oh, this is pain and that's pleasure, and that just tells us where the fucking goalposts are. Like, okay, if you imagine a football game where you got to kick the ball over the goal, but not the pain goal, right? The other team does
Hmm.
that.
Yeah,
That's what it is. That's all this is. And the only reason that humans suffer is because we think too fucking much.
we do.
KCA Randy and Stephanie's here, and 0125AR. I don't know how to say that. Anyway,
We just call
anyway,
them AR. We just call them AR.
yeah. So, like, okay, first of all, you're an organism, I'm an organism, right?
Hmm.
Most of what we operate on is based on some neurotransmitters and emotional, basically an emotional state of being.
Hmm.
But we have this remarkable ability to torture ourselves with our rational mind. But at the same time, nobody knows this, but we have the ability to stop doing that. So that pain is just another sensation. It's the other goalpost. You could reverse it, basically. And there are ways to do that. The problem, like, my idea that Adam and Eve, when they ate from the tree of knowledge or of what is it called again? The tree of what did
Tree
they
of
eat?
knowledge of good and evil.
Good and evil, right? Yeah, the knowledge of good and evil. So humans have that. We have this ability to basically say, "Oh, this is bad. That's good." Whereas most really peaceful animals like raccoons don't do that. They just go through this drama. They feel pain just like we do, but then they get over it. They fucking get over it. And they don't anticipate it. If they knew that they were going to get beat up tomorrow, they wouldn't give a fuck.
Mm,
They'd be eating their fucking corn and dog food.
mm,
And yeah, so when you start when you logically go on the path of, okay, I would make it better here and not better there. Like, okay, we'd make death okay, but it would be like a on and off switch kind of death. But then most of the pain we feel from death is when other people die, not when we die. And that's still going to be there. And that's a really tough one. That's like the biggest pain that humans feel is
mm-hmm.
when we lose somebody we love, right?
Sure.
So how the fuck are you going to get around that? And it's like, how much can you get around? And you kind of, like, I've kind of gotten to the point where, okay, my life has been studded with these usually brief periods of using drugs and alcohol. And like about 20% of my life has been really fucking down and out fucked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would not trade that for anything. I mean, I would not go back and do it over. And if I had to go and do it again, I would have done it exactly the same way. Because all of that is part of the fabric of who I am, what I feel today, and how deeply I feel today. And I don't think you can get by with picking and choosing and well, let's get rid of arsenic and oleander and a few other bad drugs. I mean, there's always going to be something. It's like I don't, and like what the fuck? I mean, if we could go in the forest and eat anything we want with abandon, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how that would work out. That would be like the
Okay.
Garden of Eden, right?
Sure. So let's say, for example, anywhere you go, if the water is clear, it doesn't have a bad smell, it's clear, right? It just looks like normal water. There's no pond scum floating on top. There's, nothing to indicate that it's problematic. And let's say it's got arsenic in it. Then you drink it and you're going to get horrible, horrible suffering, convulsions, and die. Um, so let's say then we go through the world and we just make it to where all the water that looks fine is fine, right? The water that doesn't look fine isn't. The water that does is. What's the downside to that? If we leave the rest of the world the way that it is and we just make that one change, what's the downside?
Well, all those really good stories we have about people, crossing the prairie and the wild, wild west and
Yeah.
dying because they drank bad water. I mean, we'd have
Hmm.
to get rid of those stories, and we'd have
Sure, we'd
to
be. Yeah.
throw that fiction away.
Sure, we'd be less entertained.
We'd be less entertained.
There's we'd be less entertained. What other downside would there be?
The other downside, well, let's see, no arsenic in the water, eh? Oh,
Any water that looks fine and smells fine is fine. Won't hurt you. The only change we make in the world is just that. No arsenic or anything else. Nothing in that water will seriously injure you if it
no
looks
bacteria.
fine. And if it looks if it looks fine and smells fine, it is fine. It worst, it might make you a little sick or uncomfortable, but it won't be horrific and it won't kill you. If that's the only change we make in the world, other than not being entertained by stories about other people who are people who might drink wrong water, what other downside is there to making just that one change in the world if we have the power to?
Well, it might have some downstream repercussions, like you know, I don't know what they would be, but we wouldn't have arsenic and we wouldn't have bacteria that are harmful
Hmm.
and things like. I mean, if we made the water look exactly as advertised, right? It works exactly as advertised. It's clear and clean.
Yeah.
Then I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if we made one little change like that, I'd probably, we'd opt around it, that sort of thing. But But God, everything, all the poisons, all the poisonous plants, all the fucking poison ivy, all that shit.
So here's what I do. I would color code everything, right? Like most snakes, but not all. If they're really vibrantly colored, they're probably poisonous. If they're really drab colored, they're probably not poisonous. What if you just more strictly stick to that? And then, because why not? Or make it to where at least if you get poisoned, like the consequences are discomfort, enough discomfort to make you never want to handle that snake again or eat that particular plant again. But you weren't doubled over in pain, screaming in agony, gasping for breath, choking on fluids in your lungs for days at a time where your loved ones have to watch and then you just die, right? Like, so enough suffering at risk, at least with some plants, some water, some snakes, etc., to where, man, if you made the wrong choice, you're going to regret it enough where you don't do it again. Next time you see that snake, that plant, or those indicators in the water, you're not going anywhere near it because that you do not want to go through that again. It was that bad, but not worse than that, not worse than what it takes to get that response from you. This is the balance that I would go for. So now I'm wanting to know what would be wrong with that.
Yeah, but what's wrong just not drinking the water?
You got to drink some water.
Well, you got to drink some water, but I mean, like humans, the way they figure out what's poisonous and what's not is they eat a little bit, they get sick. They don't do that anymore. It's like it's bad water, whatever, or somebody dies or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I just I think there would be well, okay, so you would be a tinker kind of god, that tinkers with the whole program. I
Yeah, I'd
mean,
make adjustments as needed because it's one thing to say, okay, I don't want people to suffer more than this, and then just make an absolute. But then it's another thing to say, what are the consequences for that? Because maybe people need a little bit more risk than that. Maybe they need a little bit more incentive to be careful than that, right? And so then I adjust it, and I'm like constantly watching. Now, if I'm a super genius god that can account for everything in advance all at once, I don't need to tinker at all. I already know what the consequences good and bad are going to be every single time. But if I don't have that level of genius, but I only have the powers it takes to be able to redesign a world, then I'll have to tinker. I'll have to compensate for the fact that I'm not that smart, and I'll have to tinker and stuff, right? And so I just make sure that if water seems fine, it is, and on the rare example that it's not that fine, there's a limit to how much it'll make you suffer to have accidentally drank some water with arsenic in it, or accidentally ingested some little tiny parasites, or accidentally like mistaken one mushroom for another mushroom. Like a limit to how much you'll suffer, enough to make sure you don't want to do it again. You're going to be more careful next time, but not doubled over in pain, gasping for breath, choking on your own fluids for days at a time, suffering horrifically while your family watches and can do nothing to help you, and then you die. Right? Not
you,
that level of extreme.
do you have personal experience with this?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. I have personal experience with my father kind of going through something like that with cancer. Uh, and it would be nice if we could eliminate cancer, but I don't know. I think evolution is working on these kind of things, like color coding things, so that we could, but it's not perfect. So
Mhm.
we're always gonna have some loss. But I don't know. Suffering is an interesting thing, and I think if you were to put a limit on how much suffering there was,
Mhm.
that a lot more people would be killing themselves by drinking bad things or basically if they could just click off just like that without any mess, no suffering, whatever.
Mhm.
I think more people would choose that. I don't know. I
So
don't
I
think.
want to I want to pause this for a moment. In
Yeah.
case there's any Christian fundamentalists or Islamic fundamentalists or Jewish fundamentalist religious people in the audience lurking, make sure that you like, subscribe, and clip and share this discussion because Mike, Speed of Sound, has solved the problem of suffering. He has given you the absolute best arguments available for the problem of suffering, so the atheists can never throw that one in your face again. And
Ooh.
make sure that you do not pass up an opportunity. Now, James Apperson still refutes it. He's not
You
he
can
doesn't think Mike's and what's I don't think
try.
the answers are that great, but you do. And if an atheist like you can think, I think the problem with suffering isn't really the problem you think it is, and can make a coherent argument for that. And you're making a coherent argument. I'm just not convinced. Then I think fundamentalists need to start sharing that to each other and say, "Hey, an
Cool.
atheist solved the problem for us."
Yeah, well, it's called Answers in Atheism, right?
There you go. Answers in atheism. Now you understand why it's called that.
There are there are interesting methods. Like I had an experience back in 1969, 1970 maybe, where I had a severe headache, and I was coming on to about 250 micrograms of LSD. And after the LSD hit, I thought it was going to be horrible, right? I thought it's just going to be unbearable.
Hmm.
And the headache seemed like it was like above my head somewhere. It was a feeling like a pressure, and I was looking at it, and it was kind of funny. And I think I just ended up laughing at it, and it's like, is that the best you got? It's like,
Hmm.
but I changed my relationship with suffering by basically becoming extremely well. LSD tends to amplify all of the sensations from your body and all the sensations from the world by 100, and it tends to take the meaning out of most of it, like the takes the meaning that you have acquired and applied to it throughout your development, right? It makes
Hmm.
all that shit go away. So you just experience things raw, like raw pain and raw pleasure are not very different at all.
Hmm.
And that was a realization, I think, that ended up forming the philosophy that I have now, that it's not the suffering, it's not the pain. All that stuff is great because it makes for good fucking stories, good life, good rich life. What the problem is when I take the pain and I amplify it by trying to run away from it and trying to solve it, that sort of thing, right?
Hmm.
I mean, trying to make it all go away, and that makes me miserable. If I don't accept just the raw pain as it, because a headache would last for 2 hours, 3 hours,
Hmm.
sometimes longer, but not for me. And it's like, hey, okay, that's what's happening in the universe right now. I can deal with that.
Hmm.
But if I try to like fix the whole thing, it becomes a monster. The fixing becomes the monster, is what I'm saying.
Hmm.
And
So
go ahead.
go ahead.
No,
No, if you got a second point, like I don't want to interrupt your thought.
I don't think I have it anymore. It's gone now. If I did have one,
Sorry.
no,
So
it's not you. It's me.
with that particular this reminds me a lot of what I hear in Stoicism philosophy groups. Like this is very much the kinds of things that they say there. It's very
Really?
much that very, very, that suffering is a choice. Um, victimhood is a choice I get, but suffering is a choice. And, if you think that this world isn't all that it should be, it's because you're not thinking about it correctly. Right. Stop complaining about your pains and suffering and your losses and your setbacks and your limits and embrace those and just say, you know what? It just is what it is. Make the best of it. Stop complaining. And if you're suffering horribly, it's because you've got the wrong attitude. And
I don't know.
that's
I don't think I would be on that end of the narrative. I wouldn't say it that way. I don't know. It's
I
like,
don't know.
um,
But
and
with
that
all you've
sounds
said so with
accusatory.
all you've said well, sure, but that's I think it sounds like what I'm hearing from you today. And I'm not faulting you. I'm not, it's just a different way of looking at it. It's kind of a catch-22 because yes, we should, just like what you are, I agree with you. We should be encouraging people to look for ways to look at things better because
Yeah,
often, very often, the way we look at a thing determines how it registers for us, what the experience of it is. If we want a better experience of something, especially something we're stuck with, we can choose a better way to look at the experience and suffer less. Usually that's true. And with that being the case, many people ignore that option or that power that they have. And I agree with you 100%. So, in that very general way, I agree with you. But while I'm listening to you explain all these things, I'm wondering why then are we faulting? a theoretical God or the claim of a God or the problem of evil when it's not a problem? And why aren't we voting conservative? Why
Yeah.
aren't we voting conservative? Because shouldn't we want a world with more risk and more suffering? Because the suffering is entertaining, the risk is life's meaning, and everything balances itself out in the great scheme of things. So we probably should go vote conservative. Like,
Well, that
so I
would
want
be
you to tell me why we shouldn't.
tinkering again. That would be pushing the balance the other way. Why would you do that? Why would you do anything at all? Why wouldn't you sit in the middle and just take it? Basically, we do what we can, okay, to maximize or minimize human suffering, right? Which is what we are. It's what we're made of, right? So we try to minimize it, right?
Well, I mean,
But if we
who
were,
tries to
if we
minimize it?
we do
Who's
in our
we?
ordinary life, like I'm not going to drop this 30-pound weight on my foot. I'm going to be careful not to do that because that's what I am. But on the other hand, I'm not going to go and try to change the entire universe and make it so either nobody gets a 30-pound gravity no longer hurts, or
Mm,
vote conservative and make gravity hurt more. I'm satisfied right where it is right now and what I can do about it, and I do what I can about it. So I mean, that's all part of what we are. Is that like what the fuck is this? God, there was this thing about somebody criticized Buddhism and the idea of suffering. I forget how it was, but it was just all wrong because of that. Because there are things that are within your scope, within your reach, within your aura, basically what you are, right? Did I say
hmm
aura? Holy fuck! Uh, I don't want to tread on woo, but those things, are things that we need to do, and we need to do them actively because we are that kind of an organism, right? We do what we can.
hmm
But as far as being pissed off at the universe, because the universe is not following, it is not giving us superpowers to make everything better, that is heresy. I don't know. This
Okay.
this requires a lot of thought. Okay, I mean, it's interesting that we're having this conversation because
Yeah.
it allows me to flesh out this bullshit that I've been preaching for 50 years, uh, at the same time
Sure.
as trying to get you to lighten the fuck up and enjoy life. I mean, this is
Right.
great.
Right. Right.
I mean, this is
Right.
a
And
great story. This is a great story. This whole thing, fuck, my dad died horribly of cancer. That's all part of the story, right?
yeah.
Right. I mean, I would have done something about that, but I couldn't. It wasn't within my scope, right?
So is it a good thing that you couldn't? And looking back, are you glad now that you couldn't save him from cancer?
Uh yes. Yeah, it
Okay.
had to be the way it was. Our family story had to unfold the way it did. And my death will be part of that, unfolding. And I accept that fully. And that is the interesting part, that when you have, and I call this faith, basically. This is faith for atheists. I have faith that the universe is unfolding exactly as it should. And that includes my own demise. And if I knock this weight over and it lands on my foot, I mean, all of that is, in the moment, I'm going to be fuck, that sort of thing. But it's all just part of the way. I don't know. I just have complete faith that it is all perfect as it is, and I think that part is a choice, right?
Yeah.
So why not make that choice? I don't know. For me, it's well, for me, like when I sobered up 16 years ago. It'll be
hmm
16 years on April 1st, April Fool's Day. I
All
played a
right.
joke on my kids. I told them I was going to an AA meeting and I was going to sober up, and they said, "Yeah, April Fools." I fooled
Yeah.
them little fuckers. Anyway, uh, when I did that,
hmm
something like the phrase "it turns on a dime." Suddenly, like when I walked up the 3 steps of that AA meeting, I went through this process, And suddenly my entire attitude about life, the universe, and everything switched. And that's called
Hmm.
a spiritual experience, basically. I mean, it's something, some immense rewiring of my brain happened.
Yeah.
And that had, for the last 16 years has served me, basically with this faith, and
Hmm.
it's it's a bizarre thing. It has happened several times in my life. I mean, it doesn't necessarily last. You have to maintain it, right? Otherwise, you could switch back and it turns on a dime. You can switch back instantly to being all negative and torturing yourself. But I choose not to torture myself anymore. I
Sure.
mean,
That
something really, really horrible happened to me 2 years ago. Not to me. It happened to my daughter, and I was a bystander, right? But she's
Hmm.
not in pain, but I am.
Yeah.
And looking at that has been the biggest challenge of my little faith program, right? To look at all of that and to see her whole life from I remember the moment she was born. And I remember seeing her for the first time in an incubator, a little shriveled up thing out in the hallway at the hospital. They didn't have a preemie ward back then. They put you out in the hallway in an incubator. So I
Yeah.
remember that, and I remember talking to her. I think it was 2 days before she died, and her whole life, and I could see her whole life as one big solid story. And if I were to try to change any of that, like even her end, right?
Hmm.
If I had godlike powers and I could go back and change that, I would be somehow disturbing the totality of what she is and what she is right now, her story, right? And I don't
Hmm.
feel. I mean, if I could have gone there, with my Glock and shot the fucker before he got me, yeah, that would have been something I could do. But that is something I can do or imagine I could have done, right? But I didn't. It didn't
Hmm.
happen. It turned out this way, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to uh, throw dirt upon what what her story really was, right?
Hmm.
I don't know. That is a really deep and disturbing subject to deal with loss,
Sure.
to deal with what your life has turned out to be, the story of our lives.
So what it is, and what you're talking about, what you're advocating for, as I understand it, is look, there's all kinds of different ways to look at the experience of life in general, and the specifics that we've gone through and that we've witnessed and that we've suffered. And with all the different ways of looking at it and framing the narrative, why not choose the way that brings us the most peace? Why not choose the way of looking at it that is the most healthful and generates the least amount of suffering for ourselves? Because no matter how we look at it, we're not affecting anybody else. If it's just about how we think and how we feel internally, right? If we're not forcing anyone else, if we're not hurting anyone to adopt a certain way of thinking or feeling and relating to the world, then why not choose the way that causes ourself the least amount of suffering and and the greatest amount of joy,
Yeah,
instead of taking this attitude that I can justify hating the things. I can justify hating it with the passion, being disgusted with it. And so then maybe this James guy can rationally justify it. Maybe atheists can rationally make a case about the problem of evil. But if you instead decide to have this faith in the idea, this narrative that you choose, where you have the least amount of suffering and the most amount of joy, and it doesn't hurt anybody to do so, then why not? Why not go that way instead of trying to win arguments or make philosophical points to score some victory in a game nobody even that doesn't matter, right? Like, why not live your best life instead, as long as you're not
so I got
hurting anybody?
two comments on that. Number one, that's what you're doing, James. That's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. We're doing whatever we can, okay, to make things as peaceful and as pleasant as we can, right? And that amounts to being a good organism, a good peaceful organism. So we're already doing that. You're doing what you can, okay.
Hmm.
Now the problem you're having is with let's see. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the fucking wisdom to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Sure.
so that's the
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
But anyway, so if you wanted to be like a bitter person and hate the universe kind of person, that is also
Mm-hmm.
your path and your story, and that's fine too. I mean, there's a whole thing in Buddhism about picking the left hand path or something, the dark path,
Mm-hmm.
and people will go into that and they'll become the biggest asshole they can possibly be, or you know, the biggest or whatever victim, asshole, whatever. Uh,
Sure.
but they made that choice, right? And they're living that life, and that's okay too because that's part of the story. And some people are inevitably going to choose that path, and I accept that too. And that gets a little meta, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, like I'm not saying everybody should have this faith and acceptance that I have. It's like you do what you do, you know.
Sure. You do what you do.
Yeah, and
And I.
I'm doing what I do by putting out there what I'm doing, right? And you're doing
Mm-hmm.
what you do by putting out there what you're doing, and that's why we're on
Right.
YouTube, right?
Right.
But I mean,
Yeah,
it
that
all,
makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I understand.
anyway,
I do.
you know, we're already doing this. If we are good people and we're motivated and we care about, you know, other people's pain and suffering, we're already doing what we can, you know, to a
Mm-hmm.
degree. You know, everybody to a different degree, and that's what we need to do, right? Because that's what we are.
Mm.
It's the nature of the
Yeah.
beast, and we are
Nature
beasts.
of the beast.
Yeah, we are beasts, and that's the thing. Stephanie said, "Death is an illusion that we teach ourselves. Look to the cosmos, and you will see no death. Only in your eyes it happens." Now, that's the most incredible thing. That's kind of right on. There is no death. There's only change. You know, and there is no personhood. There is no specialness. You know, and all of that. We're just all part of this whole fucking evolving thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
So
and I'm cool with that.
yeah. So Andrew Cummings says there are nude branches maybe that can
Nudibranch.
photosynthesize. So here's the thing. My nude branch doesn't photosynthesize; it vagisynthesizes. I know where I get my energy from. I have evolved a little differently there, buddy.
Yeah, you youngins.
Yeah.
I'm sure that Andrew's horrified. He's that you took it there. Nudibranches like in photosynthesis. Hmm. Now I gotta go look up fucking nudibranches. Yesterday it was fucking jellyfish. God damn it. Nudibranch.
Yes,
I
but
think it's
we're
nudibranch.
mispronouncing it on purpose, Andrew. So
Is it
that's
nudibranch
okay.
or is it nudibranch?
I call it my nude branch. You guys can call yours whatever you want.
Nudibranch.
Your Johnson. I mean, that was just a good go with the classic.
Yeah. Anyway. Oh, so okay. This one article you sent me, why there is no way. Where the hell is that here? Let me see. Okay, is that up? No, I got to turn my camera on. Why there is no way back for religion in the West, David Bullis. And I included one of his graphs as the thumbnail. Basically, you can see the decline in religiosity in the West. And it's just fucking, I mean, it's pointing down at about a 45-degree angle, it looks like.
Right. Right.
And, you know, and it's just, we don't need this shit anymore. Jesus Christ, get over. You got over Santa Claus. Now get over Christianity, for God's sake.
Right.
You're going to use
Well,
the same exact tools to get over
yeah.
Christianity as you did to get over Santa Claus.
hmm But some people won't because they feel like you feel about it. They're like, why not embrace the narrative that seems to alleviate the most suffering for me and create the most joy for me? Why worry about if it's technically correct, if anybody else approves?
Well,
Just go with
yes.
it.
Okay, and that goes to that choosing your path. I mean, if you want to, like a good Christian will just have absolute faith and he won't think about any of this shit too hard. And he won't sit around and argue about the mythical Jesus or whether Jesus was or whether he wasn't. And he won't give a shit
hmm
about the artifacts.
Right.
And he won't be defending the word of God right down to the fucking minute, like creationists, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, he said 6 days, and God damn it, he meant 6 days. They won't do any of that. They'll just follow that path and have this
Right.
deep faith in Christianity, and that's
Right.
fine. All it is, like, all I'm doing is I have a more elaborate faith in science and the universe and naturalism, but that's also a construct. And I'm not sure. I mean, I'm pretty. I have absolute faith in it, but that's me, right? You can have absolute. I mean, you can walk around like for another path that a person could take is just not think about any of this shit. Just don't think. Fucking
Mm-hmm.
do. You know. So I
Yeah.
mean, that's okay too. So that kind of Christianity, I'm okay with, and I have a lot of
Mm.
friends that are that kind of a Christian,
Yeah.
and they won't discuss Christianity with you, and they won't argue with you about it because they don't want to fucking think about it. They have their faith.
Mm.
Fine, I'm good. And it's like, well,
Yeah.
that's fine. It's these
Sure.
fucking evangelical nutcakes that I push back against. I don't know, and
Yeah.
that's all part of the game, right? I,
Yeah.
I mean, would I
Well.
make creationists go away? No, no more than I would make my father's death go away. Uh,
Yeah.
them too. It's all part of the game.
Well, that's a good way of looking at it. I'm sure that brings you the most amount of peace and joy. So,
Yeah,
you know, if it does, then it does.
yeah. What do you got against peace and joy?
I don't mind. See, that's the thing. I don't mind peace and joy when it's not at the expense of someone else. That's where I draw the line. And I tell Christians this all the time, or at least fundamentalists. I'm like, look, the real reason that you don't hear us making streams and going on rants about Buddhists or Native American indigenous spiritualists or Wiccans or general or deists or anybody else is because they're not causing problems, right?
They
They've
are
just
not
got
in
their
your face. Yeah,
yeah, they're not in your face. They're not in their schools trying to hijack that system. They're not in the government trying to hijack that system. They're not trying to make anybody take anybody's rights away or oppress anybody and then play the victim card. They're not causing all this dysfunction in our lives, right?
yeah,
And so go have it. Now there are Christians out there, like you said, who also aren't causing a problem for anybody, right? They're just doing their own thing. They're not brainwashing anybody. They're not trying to hijack the political system. They're not trying to get our rights taken away. They're not, you know, running a grift, right? They're not part of that. And that's fine. Like I have no problem with those people at all. I feel a little bit sad for them, but I don't make streams about them and I don't like go knock on their door and tell them the good news that there is no God. Like I just leave them alone. They leave me alone. Leave them alone. So it's a
yeah.
completely different breed of creature. So that's where I draw the line. You be immerse yourself in any narrative you want to, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. It brings you peace and joy. You go for it because life is short, and you don't owe it to anybody to like be on this lifelong pursuit of technical truths at the expense of your peace and your happiness and your joy if it causes you suffering to be on that path. Now, somebody like Matt Dillahunty on his shows, and Colin shows, he'll promote the pursuit of objective truth. Aaron Ra does the same as the objective, absolute primary goal that humanity should be on about. Like if you're a good person, a noble person, that will be the priority in your life. But I've noticed, and I'll admit that I've noticed that the Aaron Ra is not at peace. Matt Dillahunty is not at peace. And I think Matt Dillahunty needs to take at least a year, maybe a few years away from the whole scene. Stop writing, stop lecturing, stop
I
arguing,
do.
stop answering phones and hanging up on people, stop swearing at fundamentalists. Just take a damn break because he's not healing. And all that problem started with his parents. And I feel bad for him. And it's
My
made him bitter and
impression,
angry.
my impression that Arn Ra is having a good time doing this, but Matt Dillahunty perhaps not so much.
Not so
I,
much.
I,
So,
I would contrast the two. Aaron just loves this shit, and it's okay.
usually,
So Jay says, but again, they're still being lied to. This is the I don't care if your whole world view is false as long as it doesn't impact me. Sorry, let's do better to educate people. Yes,
mm,
that's what we're doing, Jay. We are doing that. In putting out my opinion and having a channel named Answers in Atheism, that's exactly what the fuck I'm doing. I'm
sure.
not
So,
I mean, I'm not okay with my great niece and nieces. I think they're creationists, and I'm not okay with that. But but I'm doing what I can. I'm doing what I can. What is my purview?
Sure.
So
So yeah, most, as I understand it, most of Mike's position here has been try to be as technically correct as you can be, try to encourage that education for other people and provide it for other people. But when it comes to things where you recognize the fact of it, like this person factually suffered and they factually died and it factually affected you in a negative way, you have two choices. You can look at it in such a way where you can minimize your own suffering and maximize your own peace with a certain way of looking at it, or you can choose a different way of looking at it, where it lets you it makes you angry and bitter, and you have to make a choice, right? So that's more, I think, what Mike's position is, not lie to other people or lie to yourself. It's but there are some people where, and I kind of think that it's okay for people to lie to themselves and live in an imaginary world, only to the extent to which they're not hurting anybody. Because I don't
and
care. Life is short. We're not
not
born owing anything to anybody.
not hurting themselves either. And that's one of the problems I have with this dark Christianity bullshit. And like they can't wait till the apocalypse comes, and there's like sin and guilt and all of that. I have a problem with that kind of Christianity because that makes them unhappy. And when I see a Christian that's just totally into this fucking sin, guilt, whatever thing, uh, I would like to alleviate his suffering too by convincing him that he's full of shit. There is no judgy God out there, right? You're not
Sure.
going to you're not going to end up dying and going and standing in front of some throne and being judged by this big prick on the throne, right? I mean, like,
Sure.
fucking lighten up, guys. The kind of Christianity I'm talking about, there's a thing, Ellen Watson, Beyond Theology, talked about the Chinese box. Basically, it's a box with a box inside and a box inside that. Well, he talks about you can be a Buddhist, you can be a devout Buddhist, and you can choose to become a Christian. And the kind of Christian you become is a Christian who wears his beliefs like a loose fitting cloak. And when you are done with that phase of your life or that particular endeavor, you just cast that cloak off, and then you're free of it again. So basically, the
Mhm.
kind of Christian I'm talking about is the kind that's closer to Buddhist, right, than a Christian
Mhm.
or secular
Mhm.
Buddhist, whatever. So anyway,
The ones you're okay with are the ones that are closer to secular Buddhism.
yeah, because
Right.
secular Buddhism and the kind of Christianity where you don't think, just have faith, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the same worldview.
Sure. So here's how I look at it. I know a lot of people that are in relationships where the other person does not respect them or love them or understand them as well as they imagine that they are loved and respected and understood. Now, to the extent that this causes consequence, I feel bad for them and I hope that they figure it out.
Yeah,
But to the extent to which it doesn't cause consequence and brings them happiness and joy instead, I hope they never figure it out.
yeah,
And that's where I draw the line on that. So to the extent to which, and here's the thing, when it comes to people hurting themselves, because of the way that all humans are connected in our social systems, it will affect other people. And a lot of people out there think I've got the right to hurt myself as much as I want to, so they can, not take care of themselves and they can do drugs and be an alcoholic and everything else. They don't realize that. Most people, I think, do realize that these directly affect other people. But there are some people in our world that they feel like no matter how they hurt themselves, it's nobody else's business. And all I try to get those people to understand, and a minority as they may be, is that the more you hurt yourself, the more you're hurting other people around you, right? And so it's not consequence free, and that makes it other people's business. The extent to which a religious person, with their beliefs and their attitudes and their actions in our world, affect other people, makes it other people's business. The extent to which it doesn't affect anybody else makes that not anybody else's business.
yeah.
And that it's a line that I think should be so self-evident and that so many people need it explained to them.
So Jay said, but again, if they are close to Buddhism, are they really a Christian? Me and my friend became Christians on purpose after we were introduced to this kind of Buddhism, secular Buddhism. We became Christians for a whole summer. And we had a great time. We just had a lot of fun. And we called God Big Dad. and we were like, we were almost at the point where we believed it enough to terrify ourselves, right? We were terrified, and we were thrilled, and we were in awe. And then in September, we just took the cloak off and threw it away, and
Mm,
that was fucking fun. So yeah, if you're a really good Buddhist, you can become any kind of belief thing you want. You can become a
mm-hmm.
fucking crazy, wild ass drug addict, and fucking throw everything to the wind or whatever the hell you choose. And but you gotta, but you have this like deeper understanding that it is all something that you can cast off at any moment as soon as it doesn't serve you anymore. So does that make
Yeah,
sense?
it makes a degree of sense. I don't think I would use heavy, prolonged drug use as an example because physiological addiction's a thing, psychological addiction's a thing, and being a Buddhist doesn't give you superpowers over these things. So I think that that's not
Oh
that
yeah, you
particular
could.
example doesn't work. But
Well, you could die from it. I mean, you're risking your entire life, but you can make that choice, right? You can choose to launch your motorcycle over the Grand Canyon if that's what the fuck your game is, right? So I mean,
sure,
if that's what you want to do, but chances are you're gonna fucking die, So no, I'm not
sure,
advocating that path. That's a
yeah,
dark path, and you want to be
sure,
careful. But
sure,
yet, a lot of 20-year-olds do exactly that. They're just fucking out there doing crazy shit, party, all that stuff, right? They do that. Hopefully, they come back from it. But if they understood what they were doing, that they were doing this on purpose, that you were choosing a path, and you could choose a different path at any time, then I think they might be okay, whatever they're doing. So
yeah,
I don't know. Anyway,
yeah. That makes sense.
there was something else. I don't know. Oh yeah, my mom. The day she died, I went up and saw her a couple hours before, and my mom's big thing ever since I've been 8 years old is, Mikey, are you still an atheist? because because it really bothered her that I did not believe in God. Right? That I mean, that I was the only person that really fucking disturbed her that I was an atheist, right? Because she kind of like, she had a little respect for the way I thought, right? And how I
Hmm.
thought about things. So anyway, I
Sure.
told her that I started like before. I don't think she could hear me. I'm not sure how conscious she was, but I told her that, Mom, I believe
Yeah.
in God now, and I've given myself to Jesus. I lied to her. I lied to that woman, and
Yeah.
because she was dying. Why not?
Sure.
I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
I wasn't going to sit there and have a fucking intellectual takedown of Christianity with my mother on her deathbed, right? I mean, what the fuck?
Right. Yeah. I plan on converting on my mother's deathbed as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, hell, I love my mom, So,
I don't love my mom, but
oh,
if it lets her die a little bit happier, that's fine.
yeah, do your part.
Do
And
my part.
yep.
So I want to like give a shout out to everybody in the chat. Like, there's been some really clever comments today. Like, some of them are funny, and some of them are inspiring and thought provoking. And like, these people, I swear, I love our community so much. We have such characters
I know. Yeah.
in our community. I love it.
Yep. And I can't believe you guys come here and actually listen to my streams. I don't, and I'm very, very grateful that you do.
We are super grateful you guys do not have a life. We wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Except for Germania, that fucker.
Get off the stage. Yeah. I can't get off the stage. I'm trying. That's how I meet my food budget every week. I get people to throw fruit at me.
Yeah.
Even if it's a little bit spoiled, I still make good use of it. So that's how and then I go around with a bucket afterwards, collect it all, make a stew. It works out really great.
Hey, the rage is here. Oh, wait a minute. The Raging Atheist, I thought you changed your name to, what was the other name? The new name?
Mm.
What the hell? No longer raging? Yeah, no longer raging. I don't know. Why rage? Sometimes I get really concerned when I listen to, like, what the fuck is this other one? Genetics and Evolution by Who the hell is this guy? These guys have come onto my radar. Oh, come on. Genetics and Evolution Creation Training Initiative. Are apes and humans cousins? Did humans evolve? And this guy, oh, he's such an idiot. His name is Riddle or something, Mark Riddle, or I forget what the fuck it
Mm-hmm.
is. Anyway, he keeps saying, they want to say that man evolved from chimps. It's like nobody is fucking saying that. This guy,
Right.
this piece of shit, Mike
Yeah.
Riddle. His name is. Oh, he's got a good first name, but anyway, it's almost like PragerU level kind of stuff. And he goes on. He keeps
Mm-hmm.
saying over and over again, they want you to believe that we evolved from chimps. And it's like nobody is fucking saying we evolved from chimps. Chimps and humans evolved from a common ancestor. We don't know exactly what that critter looked like, but it wasn't a chimp and it wasn't a human. It was sort of
Mm-hmm.
something else. It was something else.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets a whole lot of shit wrong. I mean, he talks about the chromosome too, and he's just like, oh, he just. The thing is, I realized kind of, I had like a stunning realization on that earlier today, and let's see if I can recall it and put it into words. But it's about creating a narrative, and the narrative is exactly what they do in a commercial when they're trying to sell you a product, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, all of this creationist bullshit. They don't give a fuck about what's true, or they don't give a fuck about science.
Mm-mm.
All they care
Nope.
about is creating a narrative to get their children to stay in the fold instead of running off to college and entering that down sloping curve, right?
Right.
Where the like the guy that in the video that you linked was talking about how they are not as religious as their parents, and that keeps happening over and over again. They keep unloading a bit of that in spite of the for 18 years their parents had them held hostage, and they crammed their heads full of this stuff, and then they get out into the world and they start rethinking it and they abandon religion, right? But anyway,
Yeah.
these guys want to create a narrative to keep as many people into the fold as they can. And that narrative is basically you're going to burn in hell forever, eternity, or whatever, or you're going to be on
Yeah.
the wrong side of Armageddon. Shit. But it's all about a narrative, and that's all they do. They cherry pick. They construct these sentences, which are nothing more than a fucking Madison Avenue marketing firm to sell you a bunch of bullshit. And it's just unbelievable how much of this shit they're putting out into the world, right?
Right. It's a grift, and this is how you can tell which ones honestly give a shit about other people and honestly believe in what they believe, and have real faith, versus the people that are just running a grift so that they can leverage for power and privilege and profit in narcissistic ego feeding. Right. Like it's just two different breeds of people, right? And so I remind the atheist community of that quite often. I'm like, look, let's remember the Jerry Springer show effect, right? Let's remember that just because all we see every week and all we hear every week on these channels is all these extremely dysfunctional grifters, there it doesn't really represent the whole of the theosphere, right? It doesn't really represent all theists or all religious people or all Christians. These are a shrinking minority of super assholes that are incredibly dysfunctional and dark and grifty and dishonest, and they don't represent the larger whole. Now, I'm not saying that the more peaceful, reasonable Christians are correct or are being honest with themselves or well informed or whatever. They're not well informed. They're not deep thinkers. But as long as they leave other people alone, I don't
They're
care.
more
Um,
tolerable.
yeah, I mean, if they're not hurting anybody, they're not hurting anybody, and that makes people easy to tolerate. If they're not hurting anybody, why do I care? So this is the thing. So I try to keep that in mind that, when we see these grifters, whether it's Cameron Bertuzzi, whatever his name is, from Capturing Christianity, which Griftianity, whatever, um,
Yeah.
and Kent Hovind and Ken Ham and I mean, the list goes on, right? Like maybe some of them are crazy enough to believe in the bullshit, the grift that they're running, but they probably don't believe in it. They probably know it's bullshit,
Yeah.
right? And that's why you can't talk them out of anything, and it's why they don't learn. So if my late grandmother, who was a sweet sweet person who was a Christian, if she would have known all the things that I know now, she wouldn't have stayed a Christian. She just wouldn't have, right? She just would have, or she would have migrated into something very vague, very vague and non-dogma based. It would have been a very general idea. She would have distanced herself from the bullshit because she was an accountable person. She just didn't know. She just didn't understand, right? But these grifters, no matter what you tell them and no matter what you prove, they just smile and nod, right? Or they say some kind of bullshit in response. They don't learn. So they'll just recycle the same logical fallacies, false facts, bold lies, right? Next week and next month that you already showed them because they already knew it was bullshit. They're just selling snake oil, right? So it's just that simple. These
Yeah.
people are not learning impaired; they're just dishonest.
I have a folder on my Gmail called, I guess I'm not sure how politically correct. I call it creatards. That means that
Hmm.
they're tard means slow. Creation has slowed their thinking. But anyway, I can go through it, and I can't tell you how many. Thank you for faithfully supporting ICR. Give the gift of answers in Genesis for Christmas. Donate here. We're trying to reach our goal. Fucking one after another, they're asking for money. And if you go down
Mm.
and you look at their donations, they
Hmm.
start at like $50 and they go up to like fucking $5,000 that you can donate to
Hmm.
these motherfuckers. I
Yeah.
mean, Jesus, Jesus.
All right.
It's like
So
what?
I don't know if absolutely I see that, and that's one of the things that capturing Christianity's recently been doing. He's recently been hitting the streams hard with "I need more money, send me more money."
Really?
Because if you don't, yeah, capturing Christianity's run in the last month have a couple of different streams where that was the focus, and he's like, we need like $7,000 more and for this and that, and we're just not making it meet. And I'm like, I don't know, dude. You could go get a real job. You could just, or budget yourself because I spend more time streaming than he does, and guess what? It costs me like $30 a month. Like in fact, that lately I've been finding a way to do it for cheaper than that.
Right.
So, how much money does it really cost to tell people that there's a Jesus and that you have to join his religion or else Jesus is going to hurt you? Right?
Yeah.
Like how it doesn't cost more than $30 a month. Technically, you could do it for free. You don't need $7,000 a month to tell people that shit. He just wants to live well in order to grift. And so I don't know if Gur's being serious or if Gur is kidding when he says I don't see how capturing Christianity is a grift. I don't know if he's being serious or not. But I did a stream about capturing Griftianity on my channel just this past week. So if anybody wants to go check that out, we just go over one of his videos point by point and explain how much of it's a grift. And it was from a video short. It wasn't even from a long video. All of it's a grift. And he damn well knows it's a grift. So
Have, have you been to one of John Maddox's streams? Logical, probable, plausible. Uh,
yeah.
he has like grift banners running on the bottom. He's got like 15 ways you can donate to him. Standing for
Hmm.
Truth is another one. It's just like if you look at his description, he copy pastes this entire long fucking series of things where you can buy his merch and fucking give them money. Give me money. Anyway, Answers in Atheism would like some of your money, people. Fucking send it to me. God damn it. I can't do this anymore unless you send me money. It's
Right.
like, what the
So,
fuck?
so
But
all
yeah,
right.
the grift is strong with those people. Hashtag John Maddox is a grifter. Anyway,
Sure. So,
good. Go
Leo,
ahead.
Leo, Leo, and Gur are both on the side of they don't think Cameron Batusi is a grifter. They don't think
Really?
he's grifting. And so, right. Yep. Yep. I read that, and I respect Gur and I respect Leo both very, very, very much. And I
Yeah,
will, I will give more thought to this. And apparently, I'm going to need to do a new stream about this topic It may take me days or weeks to get around to it, but yep, I'm putting it on the list. We will have a more comprehensive discussion about why I think they're grifting.
Well,
And
it's
if
possible.
and
It's possible that Leo and Gurr have spent the last week on marketing and video, creating videos so that they could start getting some fucking money too. And they're like, "No, he's not a grifter. He's going to do exactly what I'm going to do."
sure. So the raging atheist makes the point that usually when people say grifter, the difference between a grifter and somebody that's not grifting is that the grifter knows it's bullshit, and the other guy actually believes in the stuff he's selling you.
Standing for Truth,
So
John Maddox and Ken Ham, they're all people that I don't think are really Christians at all. They're just in it for the money.
right,
It's all
so
money.
it's I will admit it is a difficult point to prove when you accuse somebody of knowing that they're selling bullshit, right? That they're being dishonest, that they're saying something that they have good reason to think isn't true, yet they choose to pretend they don't know what the good reasons are to think their bullshit's not true, right? It's a difficult argument. It's a difficult case to build for anybody out there, even for Hovind, right? Like it's a difficult case to build for anybody. And they're right. Like if I'm going to make that accusation and want it to stick, and if I want people in the community to go, I think James is right about this, then I'm going to have to step up my game or step away from that game. I've got to choose because I'm not convincing a lot of people in our community that these people that I'm calling out really, really are being disingenuous. And I have reasons to say that they are, and I plan to make my best case I can. And if somebody wants to give me pushback on that, I appreciate it. And at the end of the day, is anybody that I mean, is it possible somebody really believes in the bullshit that they're saying, even if all evidence suggests that they know it's bullshit? Yeah, maybe. I think there's some kind of weird multiple personality thing going on with a lot of these Christians, a lot of these fundamentalists. I call it the writer and the reader, where the writer of the bullshit knows it's bullshit, but their other personality, the one that reads the bullshit that the bullshit writer personality wrote for them, like the reader personality thinks it's real, right? So and that's how it seems like narcissistic personality disorder works. Like there's a part of the narcissist's brain that knows they're making shit up and that they're avoiding accountability and being unethical and hurting people, and there's another part of their brain that has no clue. They absolutely don't know that any of their bullshit's bullshit. They don't know they're gaslighting. They don't know they're lying. They don't know they're hurting anybody. They don't know they're guilty, right? So it seems to be sort of a weird divergence of a person's psychology to
Yeah.
where maybe multiple personality disorder isn't exactly what it is, but it's similar to that. So that's what it looks like to me, and I'll definitely be giving more serious thought to it. I understand why Leo Gurr and some others probably aren't. They don't see it that way for Cameron Patuzzi or whatever his name is, and I will give that some serious thought. I will, and then I'll get back with you guys probably in the form of a stream about it. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Let's see. What the fuck? Oh, I'm getting messages. Oh, somebody gave me a really good idea. You know, like a lot of people that do YouTube stuff and they have Patreon accounts and stuff like that, it
Mm-hmm.
basically amounts to a pain in the ass because you have to go cash a $7 check every month.
Mm.
I mean, you don't make a fuck of a lot unless you're really, really popular. That sort of thing.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
So Stephanie's telling somebody they chose to tune in, but I'm not sure who that's directed at or why, what it's about.
God,
But
this.
yeah, when they start doing that, like here's the thing, like how unethical is that anyways? To go around, and for anybody that thinks the whole damn thing's not a grift, like go watch Kissing Hank's Ass. Go watch any of the remakes of that video and tell me that you don't think that's a mafia grift. Of course it is, right? Now some people cannot recognize that it's a mafia grift that they're helping, but they're still, if they're complicit in the grift but don't know it's a grift, they're still a grifter. They just don't know they're a grifter, right? if somebody's a groomer for a trafficking ring, they're complicit in trafficking, even if they don't know they're complicit in trafficking, right? So there's this like, it depends on how you want to define it, right? But it's still the grift, right? They're still selling fraudulent afterlife insurance policies. They still believe in a religion and promote a religion where the offer of grace is really extortion. By definition, is extortion. They are part of organized, authoritarian, politically empowered organized organizations that commit these crimes on the regular. They still part of these larger structures, both in Catholicism and in the evangelical churches, that have a rampant problem with sexual abuse, even against minors, and have been covering it up at every single level, including the very top. Right. And that information is out there. So anybody that doesn't know all these things, they're choosing not to know, like in any, or they don't have a TV or the internet, right? And anybody who knows these things and makes excuses for it, well, they're choosing to make excuses for it. So we can haggle over whether or not they know that they're part of this larger criminal organization that's wrecking people's lives. We can say maybe they don't realize it, but that's not a very good excuse anyways, right? Like, at some point, how do you not know? Like, how do you not know? And how many times have people brought something like to Capturing Christianity where they absolutely show that his arguments are fallacious? He has no way around having those arguments exposed, and yet will reuse those arguments a few months down the road as if he hasn't been shown that that his that his facts are false, that his logic is fallacious, that his religion is hurting people. He has been shown, couldn't discredit the accusation, like the case was iron open and shut, and then still reuses that shit later. And we can keep saying, oh, well, he doesn't know that his logic is bad, or that his facts are wrong, or that his religion hurts people. Yeah, he freaking does. He's not new to the game. Yeah, he knows, and he's chosen to not let that be a problem for him, right? To not let that factor into his narrative, right? So it's a lot like narcissists. They've got this weird multiple personality thing going on, where part of their brain damn well knows and protects the other part of their brain from ever finding out.
Yeah, I
And I
think
just can't excuse it.
everybody can do that, right? I know if you're a drug addict, you get really good. Like, okay, I'm a really bad liar, but if I can fuck with my brain enough so that I believe what I'm lying about,
Hmm.
then I'm okay. And it's like I could compartmentalize parts of my brain, like the part that says you're lying, it's not true. I could make that, I could put that off in the corner. Like, and the same thing happens like when an alcoholic or a drug addict has what they call a slip and goes back to using. Like, you get this idea, oh, I'm gonna go down and get a quart of vodka, and then all the
Hmm.
way there, you got this little voice in your head saying, "Don't do it. You got that meeting tomorrow. You're gonna lose your job." And you have this way of shutting that thing down and
Hmm.
compartmentalizing it. And I think a lot of
Right.
these people do the same thing. And I think
Hmm.
all of us are capable of basically suspending reality for a moment in order to accomplish some goal, that sort of thing. Like if I'm a
Right.
bit,
So
like when I used to lie to my mom, I convinced myself that I wasn't lying first.
right.
Anyway,
Yep. Absolutely. I
so
think that's a great point. So along those lines, BS raises a good question. And I want to pose this question to Leo and to Gur in all fairness, because I recognize the legitimacy of the pushback you're giving me. In all fairness, along the same lines of what BS just posed to you, who is a grifter and how do you know?
yeah,
What criteria? How do you evaluate whether or not someone is a grifter? Who have you identified as a grifter? And how can we use that same criteria against Capturing Christianity, and does he pass that criteria? I want to make sure that we're being consistent and there is some kind of formula, there is some kind of standard, because if there's no formula, no standard, no way to know, then we can say James can't know, but at the same time that means I get to say that Gurr can't know and that Leo can't know either. If I can't know because there isn't an objective way to know, they can't know either, right? So if there's a way for them to know that somebody else is, what is that criteria? What is that formula? And has anybody taken the time to filter Capturing Christianity through it to see if he passes or not? Like, I think this is a fair discussion.
Yeah. I think he grifts a little bit when he doesn't criticize Yekism because he knows he has a large base of Yekers, so he doesn't want to offend them. Yeah. So that's interesting.
Yeah, but I don't think he was talking about capturing Christianity that time. He was talking
Oh,
about
somebody else.
somebody else, whoever Gurr asked him about, or whoever BS asked him about. Frank Turek. Frank Turek.
Yeah.
So again, that's the thing. Like, if there's a way to know, what is that way? Can somebody please make a stream about it or send me a list, checklist, flow chart? Like, how do you know, right? And if there's not a way to know for sure, then nobody can know. And then if that's the case, nobody can tell me that Cameron isn't a grifter because again, no way to know. So help me out here, catch me up to speed. I promise I will listen, I will consider it, and if you change my, and I'm open to having my mind changed about capturing Christianity, only because I use that as the example, right? Like, it's not like he really stands out for me. He only caught my attention because the community talks about him, and that caught my attention, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't care about any specific Christian fundamentalist. It
Is
just
he
wouldn't
that
matter.
guy that goes on Gurr streams and he's a Catholic?
I don't know. I mean, if so, then that might explain why Gurr has a different view of him. Maybe he knows something I don't know. Maybe they've
Yeah,
connected in some way that makes him feel like he
he's a real
doesn't want to.
reasonable person if it's the one I'm thinking about. And
So Cameron Batuzzi or whatever, capturing Christianity, you'd have to look him up, and then you could see like his face is very recognizable. Like, as soon as you see his face, you go, "Oh, okay, that guy."
okay,
You know.
I'll check it out. Okay, so I think I want to wrap it up. Are you going to go start a stream?
I have some things to do around the house, but then I'm going to.
Okay, maybe I'll join later. But,
So, yeah, I appreciate it. It's been fun. It's been great. I hope I didn't monopolize too much of it, Mike.
yeah. And this little raccoon here, I don't want to get my YouTube account canceled, so I'm not going to tell you what's going to happen to him if you don't send me money.
That's
Anyway,
fair, man. That's fair.
it says if you leave out food and don't secure your garbage can lids, you invited raccoons and other creatures to come into your yard and possibly your home. Yeah, that's what I've done. I got about, what did I have, like 40 of them this year on the yard, and one of them actually came in through the cat door. And I was sleeping, and I heard my cats just fucking throwing a fit. They were just screaming at him, and he backed out, and then I went out and chased him because he got into the. I have a fenced backyard for the cats, where the cat door is, and that little fucking raccoon, he went like he got in through a hole on the roof of this fence and went like hand over hand over to a pole and jumped in. It was like, come on, dude, this fucking
Yeah.
circus act that they were doing. Anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, he
All
almost
right.
got in the house. And if I walk out of my room and trip over a raccoon, I swear I'm going to quit feeding them.
That'll be the last straw.
Yeah, it'll be the last straw, man. Or if they eat one
All
of
right.
my cats, that'll be the last straw. So,
Yeah, you gotta draw the line somewhere, man. So
yep.
thank you for all this. This was fun. And
Yeah,
apparently
it's good
Gurr
talk.
is going to stream. Gurr wants to rant about something, and
Gur
so
wants to
it,
rant. Maybe I'll stop into Gur streams later, but I got to take a fucking break.
yeah, me
Okay,
too.
good enough. So we're going to end the stream, guys. If I can figure out how to do that. So goodbye, cruel world.
Goodbye, Crew World.
And I press the button. I don't know what's happening.